Hi, you guys. It's your girl Jelly, as told by iDance on IG, and Real Sisters Real Talk on IG. And I know you guys have missed me. I have been celebrating my birthday as well as getting some stuff done. I've been doing a lot. I am so busy, it's just ridiculous. So, definitely. But I appreciate everything God has given me, I guess, to do. So, it's more so busy is a good way, not a bad way. But definitely, I am back with the Bible basics. I think I am before I head into the New Testament of the Bible basics. This is going to put a pause on the Bible basics because I do have another series that I'm gonna start and put out in regards to the Bible. And I hope you guys really like it and enjoy. God's placed some things in my spirit to talk about, and that will be coming soon next week. So I hope you guys are ready. And so right now, I think everybody can relate to this, or some people can relate to this. If you feel like it's the book of Job, Job was a person, and if you feel like basically Job was the type of guy that was living his life right, and he was one of, I would say, I would say God's favorite, but in the light of God and in the light of His eyes, he was living his life in a righteous light. But Job was never tested, and so with coming with those tests is remaining that faith. And of course, your people around you have to be faithful, because they'll start blaming you, thinking stuff is wrong, and that ain't nothing to do with it. God is testing you. And so Job, the book of Job, is just a great, because the whole book you guys need to read. It's just so awesome. Like when I tell y'all, like I wasn't living as right as Job, so I was like, God tested me just to make sure I'm hadn't changed. But Job for sure, and it's just the thing. Sometimes I get confused because I think Job, to me, was living right, but it was why he was living right. Was he living right because that was what he was supposed to do, or he was living right because he honestly wanted to please God? And so I think in studying Job, you probably got to get that discernment when you read the book. So let's just start out. I kind of told you guys like a basic, but you already know I like to put the scripture with it. And so in verse 1 of chapter 1 of Job, verse, I would say 7. Let me see. 7, because Job had a lot of everything. Like, well, yeah, verse 7. Job had a lot of everything. Like, he had plentiful harvest, plentiful things like that. But his children was kind of acting crazy. So I think that's why God was like, all right, Job, you're doing good, but the people around you may not be. So we need to check that. And so the Lord came, and the Lord said to Satan, whence comest thou? Then Satan answered, the Lord said, from going to and fro on the earth, and from walking down to it. And the Lord said to Satan, hast that considered my servant Job, and that there is none like him in the earth, and perfect and upright man, one that feareth God, and doesn't do evil. And basically, then Satan answered him, was like, God, don't you have a hedge fence already around him, and all about everything about his side, and has blessed the work of his hands, and his substance increased in the land? And so that's crazy. Like, I know, I'm pretty sure you guys have heard about preachers talk about that, but to know that Satan knows that God is around you before you know that you're around you. Ain't that crazy? That the devil knows that it's a hedge fence around you. And just speaking from my personal life, like I know for a fact that there is a hedge fence around me that God has placed, because not only he has placed it around me, he placed it around my daughter as well. I'm just so blessed to, even when I wasn't even living, because again, I wasn't living that bad, but in the eyes of God, I was, you know what I mean? And so it was back in November. And I talked about this before. I was feeding the homeless, and we were literally wrapping up, and it was gunshots, y'all, like literally coming in our direction. And I had just walked away from the line of fire, and my daughter was still standing over there. And so I didn't, in that moment, didn't protect my daughter, but God did. You know what I'm saying? Like, of course, I was protected. I ducked down, but even in the midst of gunfire, I was about to get up and go get my daughter, but someone told me, Jackie, relax. I was like, because she was already okay, but Do you guys do not know, like, it was seconds before, like, we were all just standing there in that middle part, and just to look back at it now, it was just like, my gosh, like, God was on my side. God had a hedge fence around my daughter. So just even if you don't feel like God has a hedge fence around you, just look back at the things that could have happened, and just know that God is always with you. Like, and I was, even when you're not living right, like I said, I wasn't living too bad, but compared to how I'm living now, down in the valley, you know what I'm saying? But I wasn't even doing it bad, but it's just, no, like, when I tell y'all, that's how I know I have a purpose over my life. And again, God will place, when you have a purpose in your life, God will place that hedge fence around you, and the enemy knows that, which is why he'll try to attack you left and right. So y'all be mindful of that, okay? And so that's crazy, right? So moving on to chapter 2, the Lord said it again. Verse 3, he said, the Lord said to Satan, has thou considered my servant Job? There is none like him on earth, a perfect and upright man, one that feareth God and goes from evil. He holds fast in his integrity, although he may move against me to destroy him without cause. Like, don't, move against him, basically. And I'm reading from, not the Old Testament, but King James Version, so that's why it's kind of talking like that. And so God was like, basically, he said, try Job. Job was, upright, so he ain't gonna do nothing. And the devil was like, no, he is, and he gonna curse your name. Just watch it. The devil really got a lot of nerve talking to God like this. I said, but you already know who always wins in the end. A good friend indeed. And so basically, Job, let me see now what Job's fan. So Satan went first, verse 7. Chapter 2, so went Satan forth from the presence of the Lord and smote Job with his sore bows and sole of his foot. So he made Job get really sick. And then his wife was like, curse God and die. His wife was telling him to do that. So the devil said that he's gonna curse God and die. And you know what? And what I kind of took from it, he said that to his wife. His wife was like, kept saying that to Job, to like, why is this happening to you? And then another thing that came into me was when it says, now when Job's 3 friends, is verse 11, now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this evil that was come upon him, they came from all the places, and they was basically like, what did you do, Job, to make God do this to you? Sir, I didn't do anything. Like, you get what I'm saying? Be your own friends. And I can really, really speak on that. Like, stuff, like when things were happening bad in my life, I didn't know that God was rearranging my life in different ways. So because everybody's not meant to go with you in certain areas, and especially when you're elevating, when you're doing things with a purpose, sometimes people can't go with you. And so I had to not learn it the hard way, but I had to realize that, Angelica, it's not your fault that these things may happen. But of course, if you making unwise decisions, that could be your fault. But if you're living right and people are against you, or people are trying to say, oh, Angelica, no, it ain't me, I'm just being tested and I'm going to remain faithful. And so that is really what I've learned from this book. Of course, when I read it again, I'm probably going to learn more, because that's what the Bible does. It changes when you come into revelation of different things. And so it was just very awesome to see that. But it just, be mindful of people around you, if they don't really see what you're going through as tests, but they see it as something that you're doing wrong. Because honestly, you may not be doing anything wrong, and God is just testing you just to make sure that you're steadfast and you're faithful in his name. And so that just, it kind of spoke to me when that happened. And then so in verse 12, one of the guys, because it was crying, so I said, okay, let me see. And then Job, after a while, Job was getting weary. See, with people around you telling you it's your fault, Job was like, he opened his mouth and he cursed his day. So he didn't curse God, nothing like that. He just, God, why are you doing all this to me? I wish I was never born. And it's so crazy, because when I was younger, I did say that when things happened to me. I was just like, God, like, why would you make me like this? Like, why? Like, it's like, but again, I had to, even just revelations, just as I've been like going through my spiritual journey, I've just been seeing that, my gosh, like, I was blessed since the day I was born. And because I was blessed, I was marked by the devil for him to try to steal, kill, and destroy everything that I have in me that can grow into fruition and to live out God's purpose. And for a minute, I was letting the devil win. But no, this tool shall pass. And so we got to kind of refocus. I had to, for sure. I'm still am. I'm nobody's perfect. You live it, you learn it. Like, then let me stop playing. But yes, like, literally, y'all, like, when I tell you, like, I had to know. No, I had to stop looking at, like, what I'm saying, like, everything's always happening. No, I'm ready. What's the test? Come on? Because I know it's the devil trying to attack me, and I know that's not God. So we have to kind of use our discernment with different things, and that is kind of what it says here. And so, Job, honestly, I think too, he prayed to God. He was like, please, please, because Job had a lot of money. I think even his children had died. Like, the big children that he did have, it was a lot that was going on. And so I read the book before, but I didn't read it again. I should have read it before, but yeah, it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, like Job was going through it, y'all. Like, when I tell you going through it, and he still didn't curse God, even off like everything that happened, still didn't do it. So let me tell y'all what happened when he kind of came back. Trying to read to the thing. So Job started praying. This was chapter 6, verse 7. The things that my soul refused to touch as my sorrowful meat. Oh, that I might have my request, and that God would grant me the thing that I long for. Even it would please God to destroy me, that he would let loose his hand and cut me off. Then should I yet comfort. My mom's calling me. Let me go do this.